Hello, everyone, I'm Charlie, and welcome to my first DraftKings UCL DFS slate breakdown of the season. So, super exciting this year. We got a new format, more games, more teams, and because of that, we get a lot more kind of lopsided matchups, which makes it, I'd say, a little bit easier for DFS at least, since there's kind of more avenues to build around rather than just like, oh, we just got to stack Man City because they're the only minus favorite on the slate. But now, like every one of these games is minus odds, which lets you get different and it lets you kind of pick and choose who to go rather than just stacking one team. So yeah, but still, it's Bayern are minus 750. That's a lot bigger, a lot more of a gap in that matchup compared to most of the others. But at least there's some leeway with like a Liverpool or a Real Madrid at minus 300 or a Liverpool at minus 100 or even Sporting at minus 150. Speaking of Sporting, it'll be the first lineup that I go through and talk about set pieces. I think Sporting could be a really interesting kind of GPP slash value avenue for building just because a lot of their guys are pretty cheap compared to the guys in the other games. Like this, I'll just get to prices in a little bit, but for set pieces, it'll be Gonsalves and Quenda, I guess, in this team. There's a chance that maybe Trincao would take, as well as maybe Katamo or Nuno Santos if he ends up being the one who starts left wing back. They've always kind of not had super uniform sets. I think I talk about it every year with them, but I feel like it'd be pretty likely Gonsalves and Quenda splitting in this lineup. And then for Lille, it should be Zagrova and Capella. There's a chance that Angel Gomez maybe takes a couple, but mostly Zagrova and Capella. For Milan, Teo Hernandez and Christian Pulisic in swingers these days. They've gotten like a pretty solid routine now. Like it's just those two guys, which makes it easy to predict. And for Liverpool, it should be Alexander Arnold and Robertson. Although there's a chance always that Szoboszlai takes a couple, but it just hasn't happened under slot yet. Interesting to have Nunez in projected lineup over Jota too. We'll see how accurate that is. For Bayern, it should be Kimmich and Olise, but maybe Guerrero takes those that Olise share, but it should be Olise. It should be Olise and Kimmich is splitting. And Kimmich, I'd say, probably takes a little bit more than Olise. He might take like, I don't want to say 75%, but it could get to that numbers just because he is the main set piece guy on them. And then for Dynamo Zagreb, it should be Baturina and maybe Sucic. I haven't looked into them too deeply because, frankly, I doubt they get that many set pieces. Real Madrid, it should be Modric in this lineup. If he's not in, and this is like Chouameni. I think Chouameni is maybe back from injury. So if it's Chouameni for Modric, it should be Rodrigo Monopoly. If Arda Güler is in here, if Bellingham isn't 100% fit yet, just because he hasn't played in a couple weeks, Ancelotti said he's available, so we'll see if he ends up starting straight in. But if it's Arda Güler here, it should be him and Modric splitting this lineup. If there's no Modric, it should be mostly Güler, maybe a little bit of Rodrigo. But yeah, they're a little bit lineup dependent. Modric is like the number one priority, though. Him and Güler kind of splitting, but I doubt they both play for one, and it could even be neither of them. For Stuttgart, their sets have been a little bit of a mess recently. Should be Stiller mostly. Maybe Reader takes a couple. Maybe Mittelstadt takes a couple. But another team that I don't expect to have really a ton of set pieces, so I'm not looking too deeply. For pricing, it's a very forward-heavy slate. Mbappe, Vinicius Jr., Harry Kane, Mo Salah, Rodrigo even with set pieces. Like there's a lot of options. And because of that, it can go a lot of different ways. I think the ownership probably pools around Mbappe and Kane. I don't know if people will necessarily jam both, but I think most people will have at least one of those in their builds for cash at least. For GPP, always can mix and match whoever. Could even make a stand and fade one, but definitely scary considering how talented these guys are. Rodrigo, in my opinion, is the safest for cash if we see no Modric or Guler, just because he's got set pieces and he's a little bit cheaper than those top end guys. The worry with him, though, is that I don't think he can really match the upside of this big three of Kane, Vinicius, and Mbappe, or even really Salah. So that's a little bit scary, but it probably won't dissuade me from playing him if it's a set basey team, or if he gets like a set piece base lineup. If I were to make a stand on one of like the top three guys, I'd probably go Kane. Best matchup, like he's just crazy, especially against these smaller teams. He's a bit of a kind of bad team farmer. That's where he kind of has his best performances. Kind of the reason why he hasn't won a trophy yet. But because of that, they're playing Dynamo Zagreb. Like I could see him getting 2, 3 goal contributions easily. And then because of how good those top guys are, the mid range is really lackluster here. Like Jokeres, I think is the pick of the bunch. I'd play him over the Liverpool guys just because he's a guaranteed 90-minute player, which you can't really say for any of the guys besides Salah, because they've got Gakpo, Nunez, Diaz, Jota, who will all kind of rotate in for each other. Now, Jamal Musiala, I think this will be a super popular play. 6,500 is super cheap. Like, I could see it being a 3 forward slate with the way these positioning is. I really wish Musiala was a midfielder. I'd be a lot more happy playing him there. But even at forward, I think I'll likely find a way to jam him because he is like the cheapest Bayern attacker by some distance. Like, I don't even think there's anyone even in his range. Like, yeah, Muller's the closest, like 2K more expensive. When you get the midfielders, Kimmich, who I'll get to later, is like the same price, and he's going to be a good play too. And Elise is like another guy who's like 4K more. So yeah, Musiala, I think, is in a great spot. And then after that, I like Trincao as a punt, and I love Giovanni Quenda at this spot. 4,200, I think, is fantastic value. I wish he was a defender considering he plays wingback, but even if he isn't, he's on a minus favorite team with set pieces in a pretty DFS friendly position. I really like him here. You're going to need value because of how good the top options are. And I looked at the slate earlier and I just don't really see a ton of guys who are in that great spots for this price range, even if he's mispositioned. Like I'd still eat the forward slot role possibly. And that's another reason why I talk about it being a 3 forward slate for cash building, because you've got him, you've got Musiala, and then you've got your top options. And I think I'd probably do 3 of those. Midfielders. Olise is super expensive. I could see maybe you go maybe Musiala and Quenda and then maybe Olise, and then that's where you've pulled your kind of stud pay up salary. That could work. My worry with him is that he is not going to be a 90-minute player, even though he has set pieces. Like you kind of want guys with certain minutes here, considering Bayern are probably going to smash, and the longer you're on the field, the more chance you have of getting more goal contributions here. Saying that though, he's probably got the best floor on the slate. We kind of balance that out with upside. Like Kimmich will have a lot of floor, but then not much. Olise is kind of a bit of both, but he's expensive, and that's kind of the trade-off for him. Jude Bellingham, I think he's a GPP play. For cash, I'm just not really even considering him. He does not really a floor, and with him playing deeper, he's not been as involved in the goal contributions as he was last season when he was essentially a false 9. With Mbappe, I just feel like he's kind of not really worth it right now. I'm kind of more wait and see for him, especially considering he's coming off of an injury. That Pulisic, I just wish he was like 2K cheaper. Then I love him. I know he has set pieces now, but Liverpool is a tough matchup. They're a lot more possession based than they were under Klopp, and because of that, it's a lot less kind of end to end, which doesn't really benefit picking against them as much just because there's not as many opportunities for floor, considering they have a little bit less of the ball and less opportunities going forward. Modric is too much for me. He's a guy who will for sure not go 90 minutes. And even if he ends up with like a monopoly based lineup, I just think he's too much for how little upside he has and how guaranteed limited minutes he has. Pote, otherwise known as Gonsalves, he's you can ignore the dog. But Gonsalves, I just feel like he doesn't really cross corners as much as like your traditional set taker. He plays a lot of them short, and a lot of the time his sets aren't even guaranteed anyway. That scares me a little bit. He's got decent upside, probably one of the most. Calm down, Coda. He's got decent upside, probably like second most on that team after Gonsalves. I just feel like at that price, you'd rather kind of find it to get up to an Elise, or go as a Grova over who is a little bit more DFS friendly in terms of crossing and that kind of thing, or go down to a Kimmich who probably is the first guy in most cash builds just because he's pretty cheap. He's like the cheapest way to get to Bayern with set pieces and playing right back now, which gives him a little bit more open play value, I feel like, considering he'll cross it a slightly more amount than when he's in the middle kind of playing is that number 6 role. So Kimmich will just be my first man in. I'm trying to think if I put it on the thumbnail. I probably will end up putting what's his name? I've already forgotten because I've learned about him like today. Quenda. I'll probably have Quenda on my covers because he's a little bit different, but Kimmich is like the true cash guy. You should be playing Kimmich in cash. He'd be 100% owned, I feel like. Szoboszlai, there's no Alexander Arnold, I think is a not bad play. He should split sets in that case. And midfield is just not that stacked, really. Like there's Olise, there's Zagrova, Kimmich are kind of like the main guys I'm thinking about playing. And other than that, it's kind of whatever. Forwards, it's kind of a forward slate, like I talked about earlier. Everyone else I'm just kind of whatever on. Stiller flat 3K is not awful. I don't mind that as a little bit of value. He might be super popular actually, but he's never my kind of guy really. Same with Batterina. I think I'm looking more at Stiller. I'm a little bit more tempted by him. We'll see how lineups shake out and what guys end up in good spots. And for defender, Alexander Arnold and Robertson have been plug and plays in the past. But under Slot, they've been a little bit less attacking. Like we saw Robertson over the weekend drop like 2 points and get subbed. Alexander Arnold went 90, but he's been getting subbed a lot too for these games. I still think you play Alexander Arnold. He's got just a lot more upside than Robertson. And as we saw, they can just push him into the midfield if they bring on Bradley, which they've been doing every game. When Tsimikas comes on, you know it's going to be for Robertson is the issue there. I still am likely to end up going both, honestly, in cash. But like Teo Hernandez is not a bad alternative. Guerrero is not a bad alternative if there's no Elise, especially. But those 4 guys are all in all right spots. I still probably edge it to the Liverpool fullbacks though, for cash at least. For DVP, just go crazy. And because of that, rest of the defenders are kind of meh to me. I think you're most likely punting if you're not going those guys. I really wish the Sporting guys were defender eligible, like I talked about before. There's other Sporting fullback is also a forward, which just makes me mad because they're defenders, first of all, not forwards. Yeah, Gatamo. Like I don't know why neither of them are defender. They play wing back. That's more defender than it is forward. I'll tell you that. But yeah, Davies I think is not bad for GPP. Not projected, but if he ends up at left back, I think he's all right for that cheap. And then after that, I think you just punt, honestly. Like the guys I'm thinking about are like Stenzel if he's in, is not bad for that cheap. Same with Wagnerman. Middlestock's great for that cheap. I could get behind Middlestock a lot for 2,700. And then yeah, I don't really think there's much of a mid range here. almost none as a matter of fact. Like maybe a Liverpool fullback if you're, or center back. I mean, if you're pairing with one of the set takers, maybe a Bayern center back in GPP builds because you're hoping that he gets a goal off of a set piece from Kimmich or Elise. And that's it really. Like there's not a ton of really good D options. Goalie, as always, is a crapshoot. Hunt for saves, pay up for the safer approach, and just hope for a clean sheet win and sacrifice the salary premium. In terms of a core, I think I'm leaning going Kimmich, Alexander Arnold, and where's this guy? Quenda. I'm pretty sure that's where I'm at right now. We'll see how lineups shake out. Like there's an argument for like a committing to going like a forward like a Harry Kane and core. But this gives you a lot of freedom. So that's why I'm leaning towards this right now. I could end up having Kane for Quenda. Kimmich and Alexander Arnold will be in my core though for sure. And yeah, guys, that'll be it. Make sure you check out the FSI website and join the Discord through there if you want to get cores after lineups come in, and as well as maybe ask questions about the slate. And good luck, guys. See you for the next vid. Peace.